Greetings and welcome to Pinball Help. Mike here. I'm also here with my friends Gene and Jeff, and we are working on this 1956 Bally Balls A Poppin. We have not even turned it on. If you've been watching the earlier videos in the series, we got this thing was shipped in, the glass was broken. We've been messing around with some stuff. We've actually fabricated some plastics on our laser, which is right here. Some cool plastics. We're not quite sure what we're going to do in terms of how we're going to put graphics on them. So we're exploring our options there. We might print something up on a vinyl cutter, or we might try to do something fancy like a UV printer. Yeah. So we're still exploring. So we've gone through the game now. I'll give you a little bit of an update of what we've done. We're really being kind of meticulous in going over the game before we even plug it in and turn it on. So we've gone through and we've checked all the cable, all the coils, and we've also compared them to the schematics and made sure that all the switch stacks were set up right as best we could. I cleaned most of these regular stacks here. I haven't messed with this stuff over here on the trip thing or the score motor. I'm gonna, just don't see any sense in diving in too deep until we really see what we're working with. But in the process of going over it, we found all kinds of weird little anomalies. We found that over here somebody had removed a coil and then used a paper clip to extend the ground plane. We also found a few wires that were not really well hooked up. They're all back soldered, electrically solid. It's not necessarily the best setup, but it does look like it should work. There's one relay missing in the back, and what relay was that? That was the
anti-cheat.
The anti-cheat relay.
Wonky,
and then we had this one right here, this one that was burned out, which we decided was the player 200 point counter thing. So what probably happened was player 2 had a switch stuck on the playfield, and he just let the game go ding, 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 and it heated up and it literally caught fire. You can see the damage. It's been repaired. The coil that's in here is the wrong coil. Instead of a 50 ohm, it's a 75 or an 80 ohm. And you'll also notice, which we noticed when we dived in, see this plate here is different from these two. So you can see the alignment of the switches in the stack. This should not be pointing that way. It should be up straight with the rest of them. So they have taken this out and replaced it with whatever they had on hand. It's the wrong coil, and this is also not the right plate here. But it looks like it may function properly. It does. I've checked the resistance on the coil. So rather than, and we're also trying to find some of these replacement coils, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. We did replace this 25 ohm 5 watt resistor that was here with a newer one, so that's all set up. There's another little wonky coil set up right here where somebody has, the lugs have broken off of this kick-out coil, and it's been unwound and attached to this. It does appear to work. I do think maybe we should get a piece of tape and put a little tape around that before we try to turn the game on.
Yeah.
But I think we've looked this all over. About the only thing we haven't completely done is we haven't checked all the playfield switches to make sure that they are open. We will know if one of them is closed because when we turn the game on, the score motor will probably keep going. So that is one other thing we might want to do before we start the game up. But it all looks relatively good. We've gone through, repaired, everything that we saw was obvious. So let's go around in the back now. Take a look. The back of this game has got just a whole bunch of stepper units. And for a game this old, let me go around the other way. For a game this old, they're in really good shape too. I'm very impressed with how snappy all these units are. Most of them are one-way stepper units without a reset, and they all work quite well. And let me show you guys something. I noticed a problem with one of the relays here. So these two relays on the bottom, and I'm going to show this to you, Jeff. These are set and reset relays, and these are the score relays, the score counter relays, right? So they go up, and then they reset. But do you notice this one's out of position when it resets?
A little bit.
Yeah, you see that? Let me put the camera over here so that people watching can see.
It's a little bit out of position, but it looks like it would work.
Well, let me show you. So we wind it up, And then when you reset it, see that finger's in between the two. See
Yes.
that?
Yes.
So it's not going, it should be right here, and it's going there. And see, we can roll it back, and you see how it resets to the middle? See that? Now you can take the whole assembly apart and clean it, but it's I don't see any signs of the grease gunk, but you see it's still not, it needs to go just that little extra bit. You see that? And it's not. So here's a quick fix for how you can do it on these kinds of relays. If you look, you'll see there's a spring right here. Okay, so we're going to take this spring and we're going to undo it, and we're going to go one more round around on it. So we'll just tighten it, just one extra little thing, and then put it back. All right. So now it should snap back.
It did.
It's just a little bit tighter, just a tiny little bit tighter. And I don't advise doing that on every kind of thing. Let me put the camera back to show them. But this is a 50-year-old game, really, or more than 50 years old.
Oh.
So that spring was probably pretty fatigued.
1956.
So
Over 60.
see, now it snaps right back to position where it's supposed to be. And just giving that spring one extra little winding, bing, snaps right back, and that'll be as good as new. So I think, really everything in here looks pretty clean. All I really did was I took a little bit of spray alcohol, sprayed it on the plates, and then cleaned the various plates. If it needs more work, then I probably will take some sandpaper to them. But I think we may be close to plugging this thing in and checking it out. So stay tuned. We'll find where the plugs are. You see there's some plugs here that need to be plugged into this, probably in the cabinet. So we'll set the cabinet up, and then we'll turn it on in a second, and we'll see what we get. So stay tuned for the next video, and that's what will be happening. We're going to turn on the Balls A Poppin and see what happens.